for good what the other side will so passionately do for evil? Why will we not engage with the political tools that our forefathers bled and died to give us because we fear harming our witness, while the other side will pick up those tools every day, sharpen those tools to make them more effective, to advocate for their political ideology, which is a religious view in the public square? So friends, while our politics seems to be falling apart and the church seems to quite literally be laying down her arms in her spiritual duties, we cannot. Confession alone is not enough. We must resist the evil of our times by acting, by doing something about what we say we believe. So, to engage in resistance and influence the culture for life in a culture of death, Christians must bring moral, spiritual, and political clarity to the issue of abortion. I can't just use words this morning to communicate to you the horror of abortion, to call you to change your mind, or to call you to wake up and do something. Until you look at what we allow in our cities, our counties, and our states, I don't think anything will change. So we must create moral clarity. You know, the other side says, abortion is a deeply complex moral issue, best left to women's own conscience. It's so complex, so no one should have the moral authority to dictate what type of choices other people make. So just let each woman decide. I always found it very interesting when people say this. It's a deeply complex issue, so each woman should decide. Why is it complex? Because you pro-choicers say that the unborn is an insensate blob of tissue, and their death is no different than removing a polyp. So if the child has no intrinsic dignity, in fact, they're not a child at all, then guess what? Abortion's not complex. Right? Nobody stands outside of hospitals for men and women going inside to get polyps removed and saying, you know, polyps have rights. I'm pro-life polyps. Nobody says that because that's a stupid thing to say, because polyps are not human beings with intrinsic dignity. Every function that they pick that comes along with a level of development to dehumanize the child can be used to dehumanize born people as well. Ready? Two more. Environment or location. Yes, the child is located in a very unique environment. It's called a womb. By the way, we're all former womb dwellers. That's where we all came from. And as Ronald Reagan once said, I've noticed everyone that's for abortion has already been born. And our pro-choice friends go, humana, 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 what a stupid pithy saying. No, it's actually ironic. It is ironic that you sanction the slaughter of children in a womb that you once came from. That is ironic. So every pro-choicer is very grateful that their mother was not exercising her right to choose. But we can kill the baby simply because it's in the environment of the womb. That's their argument, her body, her choice. As long as it's in her body, she has full bodily autonomy. Anyone aware of partial birth abortions? Well, they're illegal now at a federal level, but they continue to be practiced. For the sake of some of the younger kids in the audience, I won't describe it to you, but you can check out some of my talks. Probably the most brutal way to kill a child. Essentially, it's halfway delivered, and that's all I'll say about that. But in partial birth abortions, you would deliver a child halfway before you killed it. Why? Because then the physician could still call it an abortion. Because if you deliver it all the way and you kill it, that would be called infanticide. So as long as it's halfway out of the vaginal canal, then it's still an abortion. Now, why do I bring that up? Because if environment and location is decisive in deciding your rights, then I guess the legs and the buttocks of the child were persons, but the head and the shoulders weren't. Right? That's their claim. As long as it's in the womb, it's not a person and can be killed because #bodily autonomy. Okay, listen to this. The Democratic Party once said that blacks were the property of plantation owners whose land they lived on. And now they say that babies are the property of their mothers whose bodies they live in. But as Frank Beckwith once said, where one is has no bearing on who one is. Your location has no bearing on your dignity and your rights. The womb was created to be the most safe place for you to reside. We bring spiritual clarity very briefly by making the point that the Bible doesn't have to condemn abortion for us to know that it is wrong. The Bible says that every human being is created in the image of God, the Imago Dei, Genesis 3. So if every human being is created in the image of God and the unborn child is a human being, then the unborn child is an image bearer of God. And this is why you got the prenatal John the Baptist doing backflips in the womb when Mary walks into the room, pregnant with God. who is at that moment knitting John the Baptist together in the womb, is the prenatal Christ because he's God and he knits life together in the womb. Poof! The incarnation. Who can wrap their minds around that? Wild stuff. So every human being is an image bearer. Because every human being bears the image of God, the Bible forbids the shedding of innocent blood. Proverbs says that God hates hands that shed innocent blood. Exodus strictly forbids the shedding of innocent blood, and abortion is the modern equivalent of child sacrifice. The Israelites sacrificed babies to the pagan god Molech, who is just Satan masquerading as a bronze idol, because they believed that they would receive a blessing in return for the sacrifice of their child. We sacrifice babies to the pagan idols of convenience, education, money, and career well-being, but Satan doesn't care the name of the god that you sacrificed your children to. He was happy to go by the name of Molech then, and he's happy to go by the name of convenience and education today. As long as you continue to shove children down his throat, he'll be satisfied. Greg Cunningham once said that Satan would kill God if he could, but he can't. So he kills babies because he knows it wounds the heart of God and hurts the church. Then the Bible says that all the law and the commandments hang on to. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So is the unborn our neighbor? Well, if they're a human, they're a neighbor. Christ's teaching or the early church, who were quite literally saving abandoned infants exposed to the elements and raising them as their own. Yes, the early church's legacy is a legacy of rescuing unwanted children abandoned to die. It's about time we take back our early legacy and love neighbors scheduled to die. So what do? What the Good Samaritan did. Sacrifice your time, your energy, and your money to love your neighbor. What does this look like? Firstly, take personal responsibility to get 10 people to the polls with you for every local, congressional, and presidential election for the rest of your life. It's about time you start talking to your friends, persuading them to vote, having conversations with people who disagree, or that agree with you but aren't sure if they should really try to rally people to get people to drive out the pro-life vote for politicians who respect their only job description, which is to protect the life, liberty, and property of American citizens. And that includes our preborn neighbors. Secondly, learn how to persuasively and graciously communicate your pro-life views. I know I fire-hosed you this morning, and you're like, I'm not going to remember anything he just said. So go back and re-listen to it. Also subscribe to my podcast, Unaborted with Seth Gruber. We're all unaborted. I've been doing 1 episode a week for almost 2 years. We're now moving to 2 episodes a week, interviews with incredible people, and talking about what's happening in the country, so you're educated and equipped to engage. If you listen every week and subscribe to my newsletter at sethgruber.com, you will be a pro-life ninja in a few weeks, flipping around, demolishing abortion arguments wherever you find them. Thirdly, take personal responsibility to end abortion in your city. Yes, stand outside the sidewalks, outside the doors of death, and plead for the life of the orphan. Offer to pay for the delivery. Offer to get them a home if they need it. Offer to throw a baby shower for them. Be a mentor family to them and love on them. I work with Love Life out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Pro-Love is here in Tucson as well. And I'm here this morning to tell you, brothers and sisters, that the most dangerous place for a human being to find themselves in America in 2021 is in the womb. You are more likely of being murdered as a human in a womb than you are residing or living in any dangerous city or crime-ridden slum. And it was created to be the environment in which you were protected and valued. As Mother Teresa might say, our society will be judged by how we treat the least and most vulnerable among us. So what a tragic inversion of justice, right? Rather than saying, baby, because you're more dependent, I'm going to provide more to care for you. We turn that on its head and we say, no, baby, because you're more dependent, it gives me the right to kill you. If we can kill the unborn child because they're dependent on their mothers, I just have one question for you, friends. Can we kill born people who are dependent on heart pacemakers, kidney machines, insulin, life support, and caretakers? Because like the child in the womb, they're dependent on someone or something else without which they cannot continue to live. Oh yeah, ideas have consequences and bad ideas have victims. And now we're having a stupid debate in this country about euthanasia. Because our elderly individuals, like the child in the womb, are unwanted and a drag on society. So we'll just kill them and use euphemisms to defend their mistreatment. Because they're dependent, just like the child in the womb. Notice these are the 4 differences between unborn people and born people, but they are also the differences between all of us. We differ from one another according to our size, our level of development, our environment, and our dependency. And so if these differences are adequate justifications to kill the unborn, guess what? They're also adequate justifications to kill the born. Listen, I don't show you this imagery this morning to shame or condemn you. If this is part of your story and you have had or played a role in an abortion, I just want to speak to you briefly and remind you that I believe Jesus would tell you that he is just as eager to forgive the sin of abortion as any other sin.